Discover the incredible moment a maid's heartwarming comfort changed a billionaire's life forever. The storm raged outside, a tumultuous roar battering the skyline of New York City. Inside a high-end hotel, Maria, her heart pounding in sync with the downpour, worked diligently to prepare for the next morning's guests. At 32, what should have been a dreary evening spent under flickering fluorescent lights became a testament to her unwavering spirit. As a single mother to 7-year-old Miguel, she often described her life as a balancing act, filled with unexpected trials. Tonight, however, was different. The raging storm trapped her here, away from her son yet again. Meanwhile, Carl Stanton, 45, billionaire and CEO, returned home to his sprawling mansion. The silence was palpable, heavy with memories of laughter that hadn't echoed through those walls in years. Wealth surrounded him like an ornate prison, its gold trappings suffocating the warmth of human connection. He longed for comfort, for a voice that could pierce through the emptiness. Even as he filled his days with business meetings and cold steel boardrooms, Maria's hands worked quickly, but her mind wandered to Miguel. She prayed he was safe and snug in bed, oblivious to the storm. Each scrub of the floor felt like a silent promise to him, every penny earned a step closer to the life they dreamed about. As the clock inched toward midnight, lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating a crack in her routine. Suddenly, the hotel went dark. Maria froze, heart racing as the power outage swallowed the hotel in shadow. In that moment of unknowing, she felt an odd camaraderie with the tempest. They were both weathering forces beyond their control. The next morning dawned bright yet bittersweet as she arrived at work. Today, she was due to clean the luxury suite of Carl Stanton. Unbeknownst to her, he was already wrestling with his own demons. As he lingered in his lavish bedroom, staring out at a city filled with life, he felt the weight of his loneliness. The scars of his success echoed in his bones. What did it mean to be a billionaire if he had no one to share it with? Their worlds collided in the lavish suite. Maria entered, pushing the door open to reveal the grandeur she could hardly imagine. The contrast was jarring. There, in the centerpiece of luxury, was Carl, his shoulders heavy with the crown he never asked for. As Maria began her work, an accidental exchange of glances ignited sparks of recognition. Neither of them had experienced warmth for so long. "How do you do it?" Carl's voice broke the silence, an inquiry laced with curiosity and desperation. She paused, taken aback, yet the urge to share her story washed over her. Maria opened up about Miguel, about her battles and dreams, revealing a heart that beat fiercely for her child. The passion in her words brought Carl back to life, igniting feelings he hadn't felt in ages. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As they exchanged stories, Maria's tenacity and Carl's vulnerabilities, an unlikely bond began to form. Mutual respect simmered between them, bridging the gap of their societal divide. Yet, as the moment unfolded, the world outside beckoned them back to the harsh realities of their lives. Thoughts of judgments and roles loomed like dark clouds. Maria felt the weight of her label as a maid. Carl waded through the fog of his wealth. Then, the unexpected crashed into their fragile moment. Miguel burst through the door, eyes wide with joy and confusion. Unaware of the weighty emotions pulsing between Maria and Carl, his innocence shattered the moment. Could Carl see Maria beyond the title? Could Maria rise above her circumstance to embrace a future intertwined with that of this lonely billionaire? The storm outside may have passed, but within each of them, the storm raged on, a swirling confound of hope, longing, and a glaring divide that left them both gasping for more. Miguel's bright eyes darted around the opulent room, taking in the gold accents and plush furnishings that seemed so far removed from his everyday life. "Mom! Who is this?" he asked, pointing eagerly at Carl, who stood, momentarily frozen by surprise. Carl blinked, caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, but as he looked at the boy, something inside him softened. It was as if Miguel's innocence pulled back the layers of sophistication that shielded him from truly feeling anything. "I'm Carl," he said, his voice low. "And you must be Miguel." Maria rushed forward, concern etched across her brow. "I'm so sorry, Miguel. You shouldn't be here," she said, trying to usher him toward the door. Her heart raced, torn between the urgency to protect him and the unusual connection that had sparked between her and Carl. But Miguel, unfazed, planted his feet firmly. "No, Mom. I was just curious." His gaze flickered between the two adults, seeking answers. "Is he nice?" Carl knelt to Miguel's level, a genuine smile breaking through the cloak of his typical stoicism. "I hope so. But it depends on who you ask." The earnestness in his eyes surprised Maria, and she felt the warmth pooling in her chest. For the first time, someone saw her son as more than a distraction. In that brief exchange, Carl realized how unguarded he felt around Miguel. The boy's laughter filled the room, breaking down barriers. "Can I try the big bed?" Miguel exclaimed, not waiting for a response, bounding toward the enormous bed like a boy completely enamored by his imagination. "Be careful." Maria gasped. She looked at Carl, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "He is so energetic. I hope he is not bothering you." "No, not at all," Carl replied, watching Miguel bounce around. "It's refreshing." He turned back to Maria, their connection reigniting. "You are doing an amazing job with him. He is full of life." The word struck Maria deeply. It felt like a compliment that transcended the menial tasks she performed every day. Here was a man who, minutes before, was unaware of her struggles but now seemed to genuinely appreciate her. The gaps between their lives shrank in that moment, and a shared understanding began to blossom, but just as quickly, that warmth became fraught with uncertainty. Maria began to feel the weight of the situation. What might this mean for her and her son? Was it possible that her life might intertwine with this man's path? A spark of hope ignited alongside a puddle of fear. Suddenly, the moment was interrupted by the buzzing of Carl's phone on the table. With a sigh, he looked at the screen and noted the familiar name. "I have to take this. Work," he said, straightening up. The moment ended, leaving trails of what could have been hanging between them. "Let us go, Miguel," Maria started gently, but Miguel had other plans. He looked at Carl, who was distracted. "Mr. Carl. Can I come back and see you? You're fun." Carl looked at Miguel, a flicker of longing in his eyes, longing for connection, for laughter, for warmth that had been absent for too long. "Of course, you can, Miguel. Anytime," he replied, almost surprised by his own answer. As Maria ushered Miguel out, she felt the stirring of something beyond her mundane existence. But how would they navigate a friendship or something more with the weight of not just their lives, but the expectations that lay heavy on both of them? In the hall, as Miguel chatted animatedly about superheroes, Maria sensed a thread of change knitting itself into her reality. She was about to walk back into her world, but now, Carl Stanton's voice lingered in her ears. Could she really allow herself to believe in the possibility of a bond that defied their differences? What risks might she endure by letting someone so different into her life? As she walked away, Miguel's laughter echoed, and amid the chaos, Maria felt a sudden shiver of hope. But could hope survive in a world where their lives diverged so sharply? What would it take for them to redefine their story together? The next day, as sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of their small apartment, Maria prepared breakfast while Miguel bounced around, recounting his adventures from the day before. He was a whirlwind of energy, and despite the weight of the world on her shoulders, his excitement stirred something within her. "Mom! Can we go see Mr. Carl today?" he asked, his eyes wide with anticipation. Maria paused, her heart sinking a little. Could she really take him back there? The idea sent a nervous flutter through her. "Maybe, we'll see." It depends on how much cleaning we have to do first, she replied with a forced smile, trying to mask her apprehension. The thought of exposing her life and Miguel to the desires and expectations of Carl's world felt daunting, but Miguel wouldn't let her off that easy. He said we could play. And he's really funny. Please. His persistence made her laugh, but that laugh was tinged with uncertainty. There was a hidden truth in Carl's laughter that had sparked something deep inside her. Yet, how could she comfortably traverse the immense gap between their lives? Hours passed, and while Miguel devoured his breakfast, Maria lost herself in a spiral of thoughts. She rushed to get them ready, knowing that she wanted to explore whatever this connection with Carl had sprung up between them. Miguel's infectious enthusiasm was hard to resist, and as they left, the world felt more vibrant, colors brighter, sounds sharper. Arriving at Carl's, Maria's heart raced. She bit her lip as she knocked on the grand door. Moments felt like hours as they waited, but finally, it opened to reveal Carl, dressed casually in a t-shirt and jeans. The stark contrast from the previous day was striking. "Miguel! You're back!" he exclaimed, kneeling down, excitement radiating from him. His demeanor shifted as if he had been waiting for someone to bring laughter to his quiet life. Maria felt a warmth bubble within her, yet the anxiety was still present. "Hi, Carl," she said softly, her voice slightly hushed. "Is it okay if we came by?" "Of course. I was hoping you would." He shot her a genuine smile, one that pierced through her uncertainties and made her feel more at ease. Carl guided them inside, and Miguel immediately gravitated toward a collection of toys strewn across the floor. It was a vastly different world from what they were used to, full of games and imaginative layouts that fueled Miguel's creativity. "Wow!" Miguel's delight was contagious as he began exploring. "Can I play with this?" "Absolutely," Carl responded, kneeling next to him as he began explaining the toys. Maria stood back, watching with a mix of relief and admiration. For the first time in a while, she felt a little weight lift off her shoulders. Maybe this connection was worth it. But doubt lingered in the back of her mind. How could a boy's laughter be sustained in a world so unequal? Yet as Carl engaged with Miguel, telling stories and sharing laughter, their bond felt tangible, as if it could bridge the chasm that separated their lives. Maria couldn't help but wonder if Carl really saw them for who they were, and not just as a maid and her son, but as a family searching for connection. "Would you like to join us for lunch?" Carl turned to her, a bit hopeful. Maria's heart raced again, caught off guard. Could this be a step towards something beautiful? Or would it lead to more complications? As she opened her mouth to respond, the faint sound of a phone chiming pulled Carl's attention away. He glanced at the screen with a frown, something shifting in his demeanor. "I'll just check this really quick," he said, walking away. Staring at Carl's back, Maria felt her heart thud louder in her chest. Was it possible to carve out a space for themselves in this moment, beyond the boundaries that defined them? Miguel's laughter echoed from the other room, and in that instant, all Maria could think was how deeply she wanted something to flourish, not just for her son, but for herself too. As she contemplated her next words, the uncertainty loomed large, but hope flickered. What if she took the leap? Could embracing the unknown lead them down a path where their different worlds could blend? Suddenly, the answer felt just out of reach, leaving her with a bittersweet longing she couldn't shake. As Carl approached once more, was this truly the beginning of a new chapter or just a fleeting moment in their vastly different lives? Miguel continued to play in the other room, his laughter bubbling like a stream of joy that brightened the corners of the expansive space. Maria found herself watching Carl as he stood with his back turned, absorbed by the small screen in his hand. She could see the furrow of concern etched on his brow, a stark contrast to the warmth he had just shared with them. After a moment, he turned back, his expression shifting. "I'm so sorry about that," he said, approaching her again. "Just some business stuff. You know how it is." Maria nodded, but her heart felt heavy. She wanted to ask him what was troubling him, but fear crept back into her mind. Could her interest in his life be deemed intrusive? Was it appropriate for her maid to delve into the personal troubles of a man of his stature? Lunch? Carl's voice broke through her thoughts, revealing a hint of uncertainty in his eyes. I hope that's still an option. Yes, she whispered, surprised at how soft her own voice sounded. That would be lovely. Carl's face brightened again, and with a noticeable swing of his mood, he moved towards the kitchen, gesturing for her to follow. The scent of something savory filled the air, a delightful promise that warmth and comfort lingered just a few steps away. As she walked behind him, she felt her heart fluttering, a mix of nerves and anticipation. While Miguel kept busy with his newfound toys, Maria helped Carl set the table. She felt the awkwardness easing a little. They were both trying to balance the roles they occupied. The boundaries of their worlds felt less rigid inside the cozy embrace of Carl's home, at least for the moment. Do you cook often? Maria asked, handing him a few plates. Only when I have someone to impress, he teased, winking. The laughter that bubbled from her lips surprised even her. It sparked a lightness she thought had been buried. As they sat down at the small table with Miguel bouncing excitedly in his chair, Maria's feelings began to shift. Carl treated her with kindness and respect, like a colleague rather than a subordinate. As they chatted over the meal, she found herself sharing the smallest bits of her life, her dreams for Miguel, the struggles they faced. It felt liberating, as if untying knots that had clung tightly around her heart. That sounds challenging, Carl said earnestly, nodding as she spoke about their life. But I guess that's what makes it worthwhile, right? The fight to create a good life. His words hit home. She hadn't thought of it that way before, and she felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Yet, a part of her was still tethered to doubt. Could they cultivate something real amidst the ink-black divide of their social standings? Sometimes, I wonder. Maria began, her voice trailing off. If it's worth chasing dreams that might be out of reach. Carl leaned in, genuinely interested. Why wouldn't they be? The world is big enough for all kinds of dreams. His faith warmed her, but the creeping fear of disappointment loomed at the edges. She could give everything to this new opportunity, yet there was never a guarantee. Miguel piped up, Mom, can we have dessert too? Mr. Carl has ice cream. The thought of ice cream made her smile and helped shift the mood. Maria realized it was these little moments that could hold tremendous joy. The laughter, the familiarity. Perhaps that connection would bridge the gap. As they dug into their ice cream, Carl's phone chimed again. He pulled it out, his expression hardening. This time, the tension in the room felt almost palpable. Maria glanced at Miguel, who was absorbed in his dessert, blissfully unaware of the looming uncertainty. Sorry, just a moment, Carl said, stepping away once more. As she listened to the muffled conversation, she couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial hung in the balance. What would it take for this bond to shift from enchanted to real? Could they resist the forces threatening to pull them apart? When Carl returned, his demeanor had changed again, flustered and on edge. The room felt heavier, and the laughter that had filled it moments ago faded into uncertainty. Maria stood, her resolve forged. If this isn't right for you, if there's something that's holding you back, she started, but he interrupted her. No. It's not that. His voice cracked slightly, betraying a vulnerability that pulled at her heart. As she looked into his eyes, she could almost see a battle raging behind them. She felt a surge of determination well up inside her. Maybe we should talk it out, she offered gently. But just as the words left her lips, Carl's phone chimed again, cutting through their moment of potential connection. As he glanced at the screen, the storm behind his calm eyes flared to life again. I need to take this, he said hurriedly as he walked away. With steadiness, Maria turned to Miguel, who still held onto his ice cream cone, seemingly oblivious to the tension. But Maria couldn't shake the feeling that their day was about to take a different turn, one that might change everything again. Would the world allow their fragile connection to flourish or pull it apart before they even explored it? The weight of anticipation hung in the air. Just as she gathered her thoughts, Carl's voice rose from the distance, tense and urgent. Can you keep this under wraps? I don't want anyone finding out. A chill ran down Maria's spine. What was he trying to hide? Miguel continued to slurp his ice cream, the cheerful sounds contrasting sharply with the rising tension in the room. Maria's stomach twisted as she watched Carl's silhouette move further away, his voice low and urgent. It gnawed at her heart, the weight of that secret lingering in the air like a bitter taste. Mama, why is Mr. Carl so busy? Miguel's innocent question cut through her spiraling thoughts. He looked up at her with wide eyes, unaware of the grown-up worries weaving their way through their little lunch moment. I think he has some important things to take care of, she replied, forcing a smile that felt like it might crumble at any moment. But he loves to see you happy, you know that, right? The sweetness of her words was both a comfort to Miguel and a reminder of the distance that remained between their worlds. As Maria struggled to keep herself grounded, Carl returned, his face a mask of emotions, frustration, concern, and an edge of vulnerability that made her heart ache. He rubbed his forehead and ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that hinted he was wrestling with something far too heavy for this moment. Sorry about that, he said, settling back in his chair. Just work stuff, you know. But Maria could sense the fissures in his smile, the way it faltered just slightly. What is going on, Carl? She asked softly, emboldened by the warmth of their earlier conversation. You can talk to me if you need a listener. He hesitated, almost as if weighing the value of her offer. It's complicated, okay? I don't want to drag you into my mess. Life is messy, she replied, her voice firmer now. Sometimes talking about it can help. Carl looked into her eyes, searching for something he wasn't sure he wanted to find. There was a flicker of gratitude mixed with something deeper, something that felt like a yearning. A need to connect, to bridge the gap between their worlds. Okay, he said finally. It's about my family, and they're involved in things I wish they weren't. His words hung heavy in the air. Maria drew closer, the warmth of his presence wrapping around her. What do you mean? It's complicated, he repeated, his voice dropping low. There are expectations and things I can't control. It's exhausting. The frustration in his voice twisted like a knife in her heart. Miguel deserves a good life, Maria said, her voice steady, and so do you. We all deserve happiness. His gaze softened at the mention of Miguel, and for a moment, the storm clouding Carl's eyes seemed to dissipate. You really think that? I know it, she said, feeling the weight of her own struggles lift just slightly as they shared this moment of honesty. But it's hard, isn't it? To find what you want when you're stuck under others' expectations. He nodded slowly, the vulnerability in his expression sparking something deep within her, a flicker of understanding they both needed. Suddenly, Miguel interrupted with his hand raised, sticky fingers pointing towards the kitchen. What about more ice cream? More ice cream, huh? Carl chuckled, breaking the tension. Let me help with that. As he stood, Maria caught a glimpse of something brightening behind his eyes, a small victory over the darkness. It filled her with hope, and she realized that maybe they were finding a way to navigate this mess together, but just as Carl reached for the ice cream tub, his phone buzzed once more. He froze, his expression shifting back to apprehension. Slowly, he picked it up and glanced at the screen. The shadow returned to his face, smothering the light that had just sparked between them. Don't worry about it, he muttered. I'll handle it. But Maria could see the battle playing out again, the struggle to keep the weight of his world from spilling into theirs. As he stepped away again, the air grew thick with questions. What was he hiding? Would this ever change? Could they find a way to break free from those unseen chains? The uncertainty loomed like a storm on the horizon. Maria felt herself spiraling, anxiety tightening around her throat. But then, amidst the chaos of life, Miguel's laughter pulled her back. He was oblivious to the tension, the weight of the world still hidden from his innocence. She took a deep breath, letting the warmth of Miguel's presence anchor her. And just as she began to formulate a plan, she saw Carl standing by the window, staring into the distance, shadows of conflict draping his shoulders. Could she help him find clarity? Or was this connection destined to drift back into the depths of uncertainty? The questions swirled in her mind as she watched him, waiting for the resolution that felt so far out of reach. Maria remained seated at the table, Miguel blissfully unaware as he continued to enjoy his ice cream, a cascade of flavors mixing joyfully in his bowl. The silence stretched thin, punctuated only by the clinking of spoons and the distant hum of the street outside. She watched Carl, his back turned to them, shoulders tense, holding the phone in his hand like it was a ticking bomb. "Everything okay?" she called out, trying to break through the thick fog of worry hanging over him. Carl's shoulders seemed to involuntarily rise and fall as he exhaled deeply. "Yeah, just family stuff," he replied, his voice barely a whisper, as if he were too fragile to speak any louder. The distance felt insurmountable, and it tightened around her like a noose. Maria recalled the first time they met, the effortless way they clicked, how he had seemed so genuine, so free. That man felt lost now, just like the light that had been flickering in his eyes earlier. "Family stuff," she echoed, her heart heavy with unasked questions. "Is there anything I can do?" He turned to face her, and for a heartbeat, the room fell silent. There was a conflict in his eyes, a war between vulnerability and the need to retreat. "You don't want to get involved in this," he warned, but his voice lacked the sharpness it had held moments ago. Her heart raced, feeling the urge to reach out in whatever way she could. "But I want to help." "You can't carry it all alone, Carl." A moment passed before he closed his eyes, as if bracing himself for something monumental. "It's just that it's complicated. My family expects me to follow a certain path. They think they know what's best for me. Don't you?" she asked softly, a boldness rising within her. "Is that what you want?" He opened his eyes, and an unexpected vulnerability surfaced. "Honestly, I don't even know anymore." Miguel, sensing the shift, looked up and noticed the serious expressions on their faces. "Can I get back to my ice cream?" he asked, breaking the tension. It was simple and innocent, and both Maria and Carl chuckled at the little one's earnestness. "Yeah, sorry buddy," Carl said, forcing a smile. He turned back toward the window, the phone still gripped tightly in his hand, but now it lay lifeless in the still air between them. Maria felt a need to alleviate his pain. "You know, my mom always said that sometimes, you have to break a little to find out who you are. It sounds cheesy, I know, but it's true." His gaze finally shifted back to her, absorbing her words. "You really believe that?" "I do." She leaned forward, pouring every ounce of sincerity she had into her expression. "I think it's okay to be lost." She paused, letting the air thicken with emotion. "And to find your own way." For a brief moment, he seemed to consider it, perhaps seeing her approach as a light filtering through the cracks of his burden. "Maybe I do need to talk about it," he said slowly, almost as if testing the waters. "But it's not just about me. It's about Miguel, too. I don't want him to feel weighed down by my mistakes, my problems." She reached out instinctively, resting her palm over his hand, a gesture that sent sparks running up her arm. "He doesn't need to know everything. He just needs to see you happy." Carl looked down at their hands, his thumb brushing softly against her fingers, a connection pulsing between them. "You really think I can figure this out? Together, we can." As hope flickered in his eyes, a shadow fell across the room, the sound of a car horn, loud and intrusive. Carl's phone buzzed again, and his expression darkened almost instantly. Maria's heart sank. It was as if the universe was determined to pull him away just as they were drawing closer. Please don't let it take over," she pleaded softly. He drew back, a mix of frustration and obligation dancing on his face. "I need to take this," he said, the weight of his turmoil palpable. "Carl," she started, but before she could finish, he was already at the door, phone to his ear, disappearing into the hall. Miguel's little voice broke the growing silence. "Mama, what's wrong with Mr. Carl?" She looked at Her son, feeling the tears threaten to spill. I wish I knew, sweetheart. And deep down, she felt the undeniable truth that whether he knew it or not, Carl's decisions didn't just affect him anymore. He was tied to her and Miguel now, their lives intertwined. What would it take for him to break free? And would she be ready to catch him when he did? The questions lingered as she turned to look at the door he had just left through, uncertainty creeping back into her heart. Would he choose the right path, or would he turn away when it mattered the most? Maria sat back at the table, her heart aching with concern. She could hear Carl's muffled voice echoing faintly, but the words were lost on her. Miguel continued to finish his ice cream, oblivious to the storm brewing just beyond the door. Frustration and anxiety swirled within her. Do you want some more ice cream? She asked Miguel, her voice a little too cheerful, trying to mask her worry. No thanks. I'm full. He replied, his face sticky with the remnants of chocolate and vanilla. Is Mr. Carl gonna be okay? She took a breath, her chest tightening. I hope so, buddy. Maria glanced at the door again, wishing she could reach through it and pull Carl back. What if this call was about something that could tear him apart? She wanted to shield him from everything, to tell him that he wasn't alone anymore. Mama, Miguel said suddenly, his innocent gaze studying her face. Why do grown-ups always look so sad? Like in the movies? Those words hit her like a punch. It hurt to think of how many times she had worn a brave face for her son while carrying heavy burdens. Sometimes, Miguel, grown-ups go through tough times, just like kids do. But it's okay to talk about it. He nodded thoughtfully. Like how I told you about my scary dream. Exactly. She smiled softly. Talking helps. The door creaked open, and Carl stepped back inside, his face pale and drawn. Maria's stomach dropped at the sight of him. The relieved look she had hoped for was nowhere to be found. Everything all right? She asked cautiously. He ran a hand through his hair, looking more lost than ever. Not really, he admitted, his voice raw. That was my brother. It's about my mom. She's not doing well. Miguel's eyes widened, not really understanding but sensing the gravity of the situation. Is she sick? Maria felt a pang of sadness for Carl. I'm really sorry to hear that, Carl. He glanced at her, the weight of his pain evident. She's been trying to push me into taking over the family business. And now his voice faltered, eyes glistening. Now she might not be able to do that much longer. I don't know what to do. In that moment, Maria recognized the battle raging inside him. He was torn between loyalty to his family and the life he wanted to create for himself, for Miguel. She could feel her heart softening toward him, understanding the burden he bore. Carl, she said gently, you need to think about what you want too. Your happiness matters. His gaze dropped, battling with emotions that he had kept hidden. I don't even know where to start. Right here, she said, placing a hand on the table to indicate their small world. You start with what makes you feel like you. Carl met her eyes, a flicker of hope igniting in them. I just want to be there for her, for my family, but I don't want to lose sight of myself in that process. Being there for them doesn't mean losing yourself, she urged. You can still carve out your path. You don't have to follow anyone else's expectations. His breath caught, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. It's just hard. It can be, but you don't have to shoulder it alone. Let us help you. Her voice was steady, filled with sincerity, wishing he could see the possibilities. The air around them shifted, charged with a mix of hope and fear. Carl leaned back, glancing at Miguel who was deeply absorbed in his ice cream once more. You really think I can do this? I believe you can. He smiled weakly, and for the first time that evening, a glimmer of light returned to his expression. I'm tired of pretending I have it all together, he admitted. Then stop pretending. As her words hung in the air, darkness stirred outside, the sky painted with the colors of an approaching storm. A sudden bolt of lightning streaked across the horizon, illuminating the room for only a moment, a reminder of the chaos they each had to face. "Carl," Maria said carefully. "What happens if you decide to take a step back from what everyone else expects? What if you let yourself, just be?" He inhaled sharply, the weight of her question settling deep within him. In that moment, both were acutely aware that detours could lead to enchantingly beautiful outcomes. But as the thunder rumbled, a nagging thought crept into Maria's mind: would Carl always think of his family before himself? What kind of future awaited them if he never broke free? An unsettling silence wrapped around them, charged with unanswered questions. How far would he go before he chose to embrace a new beginning? The answers seemed to dangle just out of reach until the next storm passed. The storm outside intensified, heavy raindrops pounding against the window like tiny fists demanding attention. Inside the room, the air was thick with unspoken thoughts. Miguel continued happily slurping his ice cream, but Maria's thoughts spiraled around Carl. She watched him struggle with uncertainties that seemed to hang in the air, each second stretching like a coiled spring ready to snap. "Carl," she began carefully, her voice soft yet insistent. "What would it look like for you to take a break? Just for a moment?" He looked at her, a flicker of confusion flashing across his face. "A break? From everything?" "Yeah, even if it's just for tonight," she suggested, her heart pounding in rhythm with the raindrops. "You don't have to tackle all of this right now. Sometimes, stepping away can help you see things more clearly. Like a vacation." He chuckled, though the humor didn't quite reach his eyes. That familiar weight settled on his shoulders again, the pressure that came from expectations and responsibilities. "Not a vacation," Maria countered gently. "Not a getaway. Just a little time to breathe. To be yourself." Easier said than done. His voice cracked, trailing off as he glanced away, looking through the rain-streaked window into the tumultuous night. "Maybe start with something small," Maria suggested, her mind racing to find a way to help. "Tell me about one thing you love to do, just for yourself. Not for anyone else. Just for the joy of it." He stared back at her, lost in thought. Tension coiled within him, battling against any sense of freedom he could grasp. Slowly, he started to unravel. "I used to love painting. It was my escape." "Painting?" Maria's face lit up. "That sounds beautiful. Why not get back into it? Maybe just for a little while tonight?" A sigh escaped his lips, filled with nostalgia and a hint of longing. "I haven't picked up a brush in years. I don't even know if I remember how to." "Then you figure it out. You don't have to be perfect," she said, her enthusiasm infectious. "You love it. Just dive into what made you happy before." Carl hesitated, but a small spark ignited within him. "I guess I could set up the old easel, get some supplies out from the basement. See? There's a start." Maria beamed, hoping to lift the dark clouds above him, even just for a moment. Just then, a crash of thunder rattled the room, causing Miguel to jump in his chair. "I'm not scared of storms," he declared, his ice cream swirling dangerously close to the edge of the table. Carl's laughter broke the tension, a sound so warm it felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "You're a brave kid, Miguel. Not afraid of anything. Maybe I'll be a superhero," the little boy announced, eyes big and sparkling. "Superhero? I like that idea." Carl grinned, feeling the weight lift just a little more. "Can I wear a cape?" Miguel asked loudly, eyes wide with excitement, completely immersed in his imagination. "Absolutely. Everyone needs a cape." Maria chuckled. The atmosphere around the table brightened, and for the first time, it felt like hope had walked back into the room. Carl's shoulders relaxed a bit more, and the storm outside didn't seem so threatening anymore. "All right, maybe I will paint tonight. Just to see if it still makes me feel like a superhero," he said, testing the words out loud, savoring the taste of possibility. Yes. Let us make it a family art night. Maria exclaimed, nudging Miguel's arm playfully. We can create a masterpiece together. The excitement in Miguel's eyes mirrored the flickering hope in Carl's. Deep down, Maria felt that this moment might unravel more than just Carl's anxiety, it might unravel the bonds that held them together. As Carl stood to get his supplies, Maria observed him closely, wondering what more lay beneath the surface of his gentle spirit. There was more to Carl than he revealed, and she longed for the moment when he would decide to embrace not just the artist within, but the man he wished to be. Hey, she called as he moved to the door, her voice reflective, whatever happens, remember you're not alone in this. He paused, turning just enough for their eyes to meet. I know. I appreciate you guys. With a lightning flash that illuminated his figure, he disappeared into the hallway, leaving Maria and Miguel behind to prepare for their upcoming art adventure together. But as he walked away, a sudden thought flashed through Maria's mind. How deeply had Carl buried his dreams for the sake of his family? Could he genuinely begin to break free and embrace a path that included his own aspirations? The rain lashed against the glass, but within the little house, a surge of determination began to bubble. Would Carl find the courage to redefine his future? And would Maria's encouragement lead him on a transformative journey, both for himself and for their growing family? As the storm raged on, the intertwining path of their fate seemed just within reach, waiting for the moment someone grasped it fully. As Carl rummaged through the clutter of the basement, the scent of old paint and wood filled the air, stirring memories long forgotten. Dust danced in the beams of his flashlight as he searched for the easel. He could feel a flicker of excitement mingling with apprehension. What if his hands had forgotten how to create? What if the colors he once loved felt foreign? Maria and Miguel busied themselves around the kitchen, gathering paper and brushes, their laughter a refrain that pushed him forward. He couldn't let that joy slip away. Miguel was counting on him to take this leap, and he couldn't let the little guy down. After what felt like an eternity, Carl finally found the easel, a little wobbly but standing strong after all these years. Dusting it off, he could almost hear the whispers of his inner artist calling him back. He grabbed a few tubes of paint, cracked them open, and felt as if he were unlocking a door to a long-lost part of himself. Look what I found! He called out, carrying the supplies back up the creaking stairs. Miguel's eyes lit up like the night sky. Cool! Are we painting superheroes? Absolutely, Carl responded, setting up the easel in the living room. Maria joined them, wearing an encouraging smile that warmed him more than the flickering candlelight. As the first stroke of paint touched the canvas, Carl felt tension leave his body. It was as if each color spoke to him, bringing out emotions he'd buried. One brushstroke at a time, his heart began to surface through the bright reds and deep blues, shaping an image that aligned with his unspoken dreams. Maria watched him intently, amazed at how quickly he transformed before her eyes. It was more than just the art, it was a part of Carl she never fully knew existed. He looked lighter, even the shadows around his eyes seemed to dissipate. With every movement, he grew bolder, more alive. What are you painting, Dad? Miguel asked, peering curiously over the edge of the canvas. I'm not sure yet. Maybe it'll be a superhero who helps others find their dreams, Carl replied, laughter dancing in his voice. What is his superpower? Miguel leaned in, completely captivated. Listening, I think, and believing in people. As he spoke, Carl realized how profound those words were. Art was a form of connection, a way to reach out and share both fears and joys. Maria took a seat on the couch, a book in hand, but her focus was on Carl, the way his hands moved confidently now, the way a smile played at the corners of his mouth. He was painting not just for himself, but for their family. Gradually, the room filled with the scent of paint mixed with the remnants of rain, offering a sense of sanctuary. Eventually, the storm began to fade outside, and with it, the weight in Carl's heart. The rhythmic drumming of rain against the roof turned to a gentle whisper. Creative energy surged within him, heart and mind in harmony for the first time in years. But just as the painting began to take shape, Maria interrupted his thoughts. What's really behind this painting, Carl? What do you see? He hesitated. That simple question dug deeper than any he had faced today. Maybe a part of me I lost somewhere along the way, he admitted, the vulnerability hanging in the air like a promise. I've spent so much time focusing on being everything for everyone. I've forgotten who I am. The words echoed, resonating like thunder in the still room, awakening fears and dreams tangled together. Maria nodded slowly, processing what he said. Would they find the balance of family and individuality? As Carl continued to paint, uncertainty grew in him what other truths lay buried beneath his family obligations. Were they ready to explore them together? Outside, the first hints of moonlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the glass as the storm eased completely, while inside the house, a different kind of storm was brewing, a storm of revelations, waiting to be confronted, and just when it felt like he was peeling back layers, a loud knock interrupted their moment. Who could it be? Would this visitor unravel all the progress they just made, or would it be the next step in their shared journey? The knock echoed through the stillness, reverberating like a warning bell. Maria felt a flutter of unease, and Carl paused, brush hovering over the canvas. I'll get it, he said, voice steady yet threaded with uncertainty as he set down his paintbrush. Maria exchanged a glance with Miguel, who was completely absorbed, fingers sticky with paint, eyes wide in anticipation. Who could it be, she wondered silently, feeling a pit of worry grow in her stomach. In a world already filled with pressures, what if this visit brought news that unraveled everything they had begun to build together? Taking a step forward, Carl reached for the door. The hinges creaked as it swung open, revealing a tall figure draped in a tailored suit, the kind of suit that belonged to the world Carl had tried so hard to escape. It was his brother, Ethan, a man who exuded the same polished expectation that gnawed at Carl's heart. The smile that stretched across Ethan's face felt rehearsed, like a performance meant to mask the undercurrents of tension. Carl. Great to see you, Ethan proclaimed, stepping inside without invitation. I've been trying to reach you. Mom's condition has worsened, and we need to discuss the family business. His words hit Carl like a storm squall, darkening the light he had momentarily grasped. Miguel sensed the shift, his laughter fading as he retreated to Maria's side, eyes flicking between the two men. The warmth of the moment began to fade into an icy chill, threatening to pull Carl back into the shadows he had just begun stepping out from. Ethan, now isn't the time, Carl started, his voice strained. It's never the time, is it? Ethan pressed, concern intermingling with impatience. You can't just leave everything behind because you found a hobby. Hey! Miguel interjected, small yet bold, unable to remain silent. Mr. Carl is painting. It makes him happy. Both brothers turned to the child, surprise flickering across Ethan's features. Carl's heart warmed with pride at Miguel's defense, and he knelt to the boy's level. Thanks, buddy, but it's okay. We need to talk. That's right, Ethan said, regaining control of the room, the challenge igniting his eyes. Are you really willing to risk your future for this? You know we have to step up. Family comes first. In that moment, Carl felt the walls of his existence constricting around him, yet something profound stirred within him. He glanced back at Maria, who watched intently, her unwavering gaze burned with encouragement, fueling the fire that had ignited inside him. The shadows of doubt began to lift, and he finally felt the weight of their shared moments pressing him forward. Ethan, I am part of this family, Carl spoke firmly, feeling the truth rise from within. But I will no longer let others decide my path for me. I'm learning to create my own happiness, if that means painting or anything else, I will embrace it fully. The silence that followed was thick, hanging in the air like a freshly painted canvas waiting for brushstrokes. Ethan's brows knit together, confusion mingling with disbelief. You think you can just walk away, Carl? You're a Stanton. You can't throw that away. But Carl stood firm, each word solidifying his resolve. I'm not throwing away anything. I'm recognizing that who I want to be is just as valid as who everyone expects me to be. With a triumphant smile, Maria stood at his side, her heart swelling with pride. "You're making the right choice, Carl. We're in this together." Ethan's mask slipped momentarily, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability beneath. "Are you really saying this, brother?" What about his words trailed off, uncertainty dancing in his eyes as he realized the fortress of expectations was crumbling. "I'm saying it's time we redefine what family means," Carl replied, the conviction in his voice slicing through the tension. "Family should be about support, love, and allowing each other to grow. If you can't see that, then we both have a lot to rethink." In that moment, the gravity of Carl's words hung in the air. Ethan stood there, caught off guard, processing the very core of their relationship. The flash of awareness that Carl was indeed serious sent Ethan's head spinning, and then Miguel spoke again, his innocence slicing through the heaviness. "But I want us all to be happy. Like superheroes." The lightness of the boy's words caused a collective sigh of realization. Suddenly, the stakes didn't feel so unbearable. Carl looked down at Miguel, and the depth of his little boy's wisdom settled all around them. Carl clenched his jaw, feeling that familiar warmth swell in his chest. Ethan took a step back, the fight drained from him. "Maybe I don't fully understand the choices you're making, but I don't want to lose you either." "Then let us all learn how to support each other differently," Carl said, the warmth of acceptance replacing the earlier tension. "Let us put love above expectations. We can help each other grow." In that moment of surprising connection, Miguel reached out, linking his hands between both men, pulling them together. Carl and Ethan shared a look, a flicker of an understanding edging into view. Perhaps they could find a new path together after all. A gentle peace began to descend, wrapping its soft embrace around them, oriented towards cooperation rather than conflict. The storm outside dissipated, ebbing away like the tides, welcoming in new opportunities hidden in the relationships they shared. Maria stood proudly beside Carl, feeling their new foundation cement itself. She knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but deep in her heart, she felt hope blossom. They could forge a family filled with understanding and respect, a family that embraced both courage and dreams. As they turned to return to the kitchen, laughter blossomed again, hope dancing in the air, echoing Miguel's youthful belief in joy and success. Together, they were ready to paint their futures layered with dreams, bonded by love, and guided by each other's unwavering light. And with that, a new chapter began, one where everything was possible together. Now's your time to make a difference. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because every click matters. Comment your reactions and feelings about this uplifting ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this mesmerizing transformation. Your support means the world.